Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be looking at S-Class Michonne, who is going to be the next promo character coming to Road to Survival. Obviously Michonne, a very iconic character in the game. We have had some iconic characters come out in recent times with the likes of Shane, Negan and Rick, to name just but a few. If we look at her visually, she has got an Asian farmer's hat on. I know this is going to be a thing that people kind of hone in on instantly, but Michonne in the comic book, the show, and obviously RTS is very well known for representing parts of Asian culture. We do have her with her very trusty katana, so it kind of makes sense in the get-up. It's kind of like a samurai look, and it looks pretty cool. She looks pretty cool, you definitely wouldn't want to face her on the battlefield like this. She's got a couple of katanas by the looks of things as well. She is obviously going to be a melee character with this, and it is an attached weapon because you can see it glowing, so it's already upgraded. On the left hand side with her avatar, you can see Michonne quite easily, and this is kind of how we see her normally. This is how her avatar will look in your roster. If we check out her stats at full 30 veteran rings, she has got quite high attack with 5,637, defense of 3,641 and HP of 3,226. So like I say, quite high attack, balanced towards that offensive stat. She's got 200 more attack stat than Priya does. So she is primarily being seen as a damage dealer, and that is represented in her role. As you can see, she's got the sword down the bottom, which means she is a damage dealing character. She of course is a strong character, and this is kind of what a lot of people will see Michonne as historically. She's had a lot of characters in Road to Survival, from 3s to 4s to 5s to 6 stars, and obviously a lot of those characters have been strong. She is also one of the very few characters in the game that have multiple weapons named after her. I think she's got multiple katanas, and those being some of the best based weapons in the game to start your crafts, with the 30% attacks, very large AP on attack, and so on and so forth. Now, while she does have a very high attack stat, we'll see how that plays into the rest of her kit. If we take a look at her rush, it is called Relentless Assault. It is a 76 AP cost rush, so obviously that's normal speed. Deal 1200% damage to one enemy. Up to 2 enemies get confused for 2 turns. This character recovers from all penalties. So not actually that much going on with this rush, but it's very, very powerful. Obviously 1200% damage to one enemy is generally going to be a takedown. Like, very few characters are going to be able to survive that, especially if Michonne is geared offensively with the rest of her weapon, mods, leader skills that she's going to be coming with. You know, she can deal huge amounts of damage. You can get Priya to easily 12.5, 13k damage without having any team player weapons. So those on top, Michonne could easily get into the 16 to 20k range, which is ridiculous amounts of damage when you think about 1200%. Now, the second part of this rush, with the up to 2 enemies get confused for 2 turns, this is identically worded to the Shiva 6-star rush. And if you remember back to the 6-star era, Shiva was one of the first 6 stars. One of the best things about Shiva was the fact that if you took someone out with her one target rush, 2 other characters got confused. If you didn't take out the character, that character got confused plus 1 other. I really liked that in the 6-star era, and if that is what Michonne is offering here, that is very, very nice. The last part of this character recovering from all penalties, we did have a semi-leak that came out where Michonne was in the game for roughly half an hour to an hour, and this was last week. Originally, this was going to be, by the looks of things, 100% infection resistance, but it has been traded out for recover all penalties, and I actually think this is better because resistance only stops things that are going to happen ahead, whereas a full cleanse just takes away everything that's on you right there and then. There can obviously be downsides to this, because if you have got trauma on you, you're going to take a lot of damage. But generally speaking, it is up to you when you want to use this. There aren't that many, full effect defense teams. And if she is an offensive character, she is going to primarily be used on an attack team. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rush with Michonne. But first, you can see visually what she's going to look like in your team. She looks pretty cool. I like it. So we're going to rush Heng Yen though. And basically, we want to see what happens with Michonne and what happens with the enemy. Obviously, Michonne has got no negative effects on her, so she will not be able to do a cleanse. So if she was, like, let's say, defense downed or attack downed or dazed or something like this, she would be able to remove that with her rush. But we're going to see if the other two characters get confused when we take out Heng Yen. We should be able to take him out. Trait damage, huge amounts of damage, and it's obviously on an offensive team here. It's not going to be able to last too long, I wouldn't have thought. So it does look like it's going to work exactly like Shiva's rush. As you can see, the remaining two characters are both confused. So if there are 5 enemies alive and you take one out, it would confuse 2 of those remaining 4 enemies. In this case, it would be the only 2 that are remaining. If there was only 1 alive, it would obviously only confuse that 1 singular enemy. And like I said, it's going to work exactly like the 6-star Shiva's rush. So overall, the Adrenaline Rush is not too overwhelming. It's pretty straightforward, but it is extremely powerful. A lot of people will know and understand how this works as well, just because of how Shiva worked in the 6-star era. It's going to work exactly the same, except Michonne's damage output is going to be much, much higher. And if you run anyone who does any sort of defense down or attack up, this rush is just going to be absolutely disgusting. But personally, I do love how the Confuse works as it's added on at the end. I was a big fan of the 6-star Shiva back in the day. Okay, so we'll take a look at her active skill, and it is Daze, Crit Up, and AP Gain. It is initial cooldown of 1, cooldown of 4, number of uses 5. Up to 2 enemies get Daze for 2 turns. This character gets 50 crit for 3 turns and 40% AP. Now, the first part of this being the 2 enemies getting Dazed for 2 turns on a turn 1 active is obviously extremely powerful. On an attack team, you can stop certain actives that can go off turn 1. We have had Imani released in recent times, who has a turn 1 active impairing 4 characters for 1 turn. We also have the Trader, of course, who obviously has Infection on his active, where you could stop that for the first 2 turns. He can obviously resist that naturally because of his specialist skill, but at the same time, you're at least giving it a good attempt at stopping that. This character getting 50 crit for 3 turns means that she's going to get a crit bonus for 2 basic attacks potentially, because she will lose one of those 3 turns on the turn she actually uses it. Then for the next 2 turns, she'll be able to do basic attacks and get crit bonuses with that. However, obviously within those 2 turns, she's likely to rush at least once, but she'll at least get the crit bonus for 1 basic attack. This I just sort of see as a little bonus and not really one of the main parts of this active skill. The last part being 40% AP is not enough AP for her to get a natural turn 3 rush on an attack team unless you have 1 8% weapon. In the S-Class era, I think the synergy between Michonne and Rick is going to be pretty important. Obviously, a command is great on attack teams regardless, but he has an actual 8% weapon on him already, and he would just give her a natural turn 3 rush if she did her active turn 1 and a basic attack turn 2. Okay, so we're going to show you how it works. It is a turn 1 active, so you can do it straight away. We're going to select a character that actually has a turn 1 active, which is going to be Heng Yen. I wouldn't say he's going to be a priority when it comes to defense teams, but this is just to show you that you can actually just obviously block it straight away. It also blocks Ivanovas, which is actually pretty good because she's got a turn 2 active, so she won't be able to do that either because it is a 2-turn daze. And now you can see that Michonne has got 50 crit. It lasts for 3 turns, but now she can't go this turn. That's why I said before, now it's only going to be actually usable for 2 turns. We'll do a basic attack and we'll go to the next turn, and you'll see that she actually can't get a natural rush. If we just do a basic attack here, she's just sitting here at 71 AP. This is where her AP will sit naturally after doing active basic attack. Unless she gets attacked, she will not get a rush, or unless she has an 8% weapon on top. So now we have Rick in this team as well, and as you can see, she's just going to get that little bit of AP off the start, and that is going to be the difference pretty much in terms of her getting her natural rush or not. She should take out Heng Yen, or at least be able to take out Heng Yen the next turn, and as you can see, we can command her now if we so wished, and I could just take out whoever I wanted. Or not. Basically, she's going to have a natural turn 3 rush or a command turn 2, which is obviously really, really powerful, and the amount of damage output that Michonne has, it is well worth commanding her early, especially when you can get in the control afterwards on the likes of Eugene, because you know how powerful Eugene is. So overall, the active I like a lot, but it will require an 8% weapon to actually get the most out of this. And this is where, like I said before, I see the synergy between Rick and Michonne being vital for basically to get the best out of Michonne on attack teams. Generally speaking, it is a good idea to use a command anyway, and Rick is definitely the best command in the game right now. Now she does of course have a specialist skill, and it is Guardian 2. You might have noticed at the end of me showing her active skill footage, she did hit a crit and then obviously some Guardian shields popped up. This specialist skill is extremely powerful, and I'll just read through the basics of it. When this character performs a critical attack on an enemy, they will apply a damage negating shield on 2 allies with the lowest HP. The shield will remain active until it negates 1 incoming source of damage from another combatant. Maximum 2 specialists applied shields per turn. That means that if you had 2 Michonnes and they both hit crits, you could still only get 2 shields pop up per turn, just because obviously shielding 4 characters per turn is very powerful. There is not much that combats Guardian 2. You have to do damage to get rid of it, but you can potentially do things like the Trader's active through it, because if it doesn't stop damage, it doesn't stop the effects. So if I did a rush on a character with a Guardian shield, it would stop any effects that came with it on that particular character. However, if I just did a rush that did no damage, it would just go through the Guardian shield. Unless it stops damage, it doesn't stop effects. So pretty basic really. You just select any character, you attack with Michonne. As long as you get a critical hit, you'll see that I get 2 Guardian shields on my team. They do go to the lowest HP members of your team, because you can see Michonne and Ivanova have the lowest HP. Rick and Frost have quite high HP in comparison. The thing about this is Guardian shields were buffed, or like altered, in that Guardians could then Guardian shields themselves as long as they were one of the lower HP people. Before, they had to Guardian shield everyone else on the team first, then they'd get the Guardian shield last. I actually think this is quite frustrating, because on a defense team, one of the best ways to take out a Guardian shield is obviously just to focus them, because you know they can't Guardian shield themselves, and it's kind of like guaranteed takedown at that point. But if you do attack a Guardian shield the first turn, and then the Guardian shield hits a crit, they will generally shield themselves because you've already taken their HP down quite a bit. So that's Guardian 2 as a specialist skill, and it is one of the more frustrating specialist skills in the game for me personally. It seems to be something that I always have problems with when coming up against one on a defense team. And I think it's generally because of my reliance on percentage damage attack teams over these niche teams that can bypass Guardian shields. I may have to rethink how I do things in the future. So that's Michonne's rush, active and specialist skill, but she does also have an attached weapon, and this is where things get even more interesting with this character. And if we look at the weapon, it is called Michonne's Violent Katana, 30% attack base, a medium bonus to AP when attacking, and in the 3rd slot there is a brand new unique special. At the beginning of each wave, this character and up to 2 other teammates get 100% confuse resist for 2 turns. This obviously means that she is going to hard counter leaders like Jackie, where the leader skill is not going to work against her or 2 teammates, and this means they don't even have to be modded to resist that confuse. So if I attack this Jackie defense leader, you can see that 2 of my characters, Frost and Ivanova, both got confused. However, 3 of my characters have 100% resist, which is going to be immunity to confuse, 0% chance of it actually taking place, and you can see it's crossed out in the speech bubble just to show this is not happening basically. Now this buff from her weapon will 100% of the time go to Michonne, but the other 2 characters is completely RNG. It could go to Ivanova or Frost, it could go to Rick or Alpha. It does not make any difference, it will just put it on 2 teammates and those characters will be immune, but Michonne will guaranteed be one of those 3 characters every time. So a very powerful weapon and very nice on attack teams against obviously the Jackie leads. There is going to be downsides for the fact that Michonne is a strong character and Jackie can have alert characters with her, so potentially Michonne could take trait damage, or extremely defensive ones like the Trader, where it'll be hard for Michonne to take them out even though she has a very heavy hitting rush. Now upgrading Michonne's weapon is pretty straightforward. You obviously just would want to go with 40% attack and a huge bonus to AP on attack here. In the 4th slot, if she is an attacking character, you could use the team player where adjacent characters and Michonne get a crit and attack buff. That would obviously work well with her specialist skill because then she'd hit more guardian shields. You could give her ransack to give her some buffs. You could potentially be stealing attack buffs off defense teams. For instance, if you're to come up against the princess, you could attack the princess on purpose and then steal the princess's attack buff with Michonne, and princess can get up to like 150, 192% attack easily on that attack bonus. That in Michonne's hands with her rush will be absolutely devastating. So there is definitely some great options you've got to go with her weapon here. So overall, I think Michonne is a very nice, well-rounded character, very powerful in pretty much every single part of her kit. Rush, active, specialist skill, weapon. There's no real weakness to her, how she can work. The only downside that I can see currently in how the game works is that she can't be really geared and modded towards an attack team and still be used on a defense team. So you've got to basically choose where you want to use her, and that is a shame. I think in the future things may change in terms of like combat mod kits or something where you can swap out combat mods depending on what team someone's in. If that came in, then she could be very viable to be used on attack and defense teams at the same time. Her weapon upgrades are mainly going to be offensive though, so you'd have to 5-star weapon and swap something into her hands, and that way you would actually lose the confuse resist. So it can be quite hard to gear this character when it comes to the weapons and the combat mods to get the best out of her on the teams you want to use. However, if you do gear her offensively and use her on an attack team, she's definitely going to do the job. Everything in her kit is just going to enable her to do a lot of damage. And like I said before, if she's in a team with Rick, she's going to get her earlier natural rush after using that active, destroy one character, and obviously control 2 more, which is obviously extremely powerful, and I love that it works the same way as Shiva's rush. But that is Michonne. She is going to be the next S-class character coming to the game. Do tell me your thoughts on one of the most iconic characters in The Walking Dead. That is it in my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.